Hi everyone and welcome to chapter 1. So this course is about IFIC investment funds in Canada. This is the first chapter. It talks about role of mutual fund sales representative. So before we talk about the PowerPoint, right, the first part of the chapter, right, if you read the book, talks about like what are mutual funds and why they are so important. So I'm going to explain that a bit using an, let's say, a Google sheet, right? So let's start with that. Okay, so the first question that would arise in your mind is, what is a mutual fund? So we are going to talk in detail about that, but right, just to give you a perspective, mutual fund is a collective investment vehicle. What does that mean? It means that investors, right, numerous investors, right, so multiple investors contribute funds into a pool okay, which the fund manager invests into different investment vehicles. For example, stocks, bonds, okay, then it could be even relative new ones like Bitcoin and stuff. They invest in those things. So what is a mutual fund? Mutual fund is an vehicle where investors contribute funds, right? They pool together their money. That pool of money is managed by a fund manager who then makes investments in stocks, bonds, and other vehicles like gold, Bitcoin, right, international stocks, etc., etc. Now, an investor, what does an investor own? So when an investor invests in a mutual fund, a individual investor owns units. These units are based on his investment divided by total investment that the fund had. So if the fund value when you invested was, let's say, $200 million and you invested $1 million, for example, right, just for example's sake, then, or let's make it easier, $100 million is the total investment value that the fund holds, the pool of money. And if you put in $1 million, then you own approximately 1% of the fund, right? That pool of money gets invested into different stocks, different investment vehicles, and you own a proportionate claim. So an investor in a mutual fund owns units. We are going to explore this topic much more in greater details as the course proceeds, but this is just the basic because the first part of the book talks about that. The second part that the book talks about is also, right, why are mutual funds so important? So mutual funds are important because $2 trillion of Canadian investments, right, are invested using mutual funds. So the fund size of mutual fund is approximately $2 trillion, which is a big sum. Okay, so that has grown a lot, right? It used to the mutual fund started in the 1800s in United States, or in the 1700s. There is a controversy regarding that in Netherlands. It really picked up steam after the World War in Canada, right? And it was few $1 million then. Now it is over $2 trillion in 2021. So the funds, the size of mutual fund industry is huge. Okay, a lot of Canadian money is invested in that. Now the book also talks about being a mutual fund representative. So being a mutual fund representative means understanding the client, that is, know your client, right? So know the financial circumstances of the client, right? Know the risk appetite that the client has, know their goals and objectives, then understanding the mutual fund products, and like what are the different products in mutual fund. Maybe it is an stock market fund, or maybe it is a bond fund, or a exotic vehicle, right, like Bitcoin funds and all that stuff, and trying to match these two circles. So knowing your product, knowing your client, and trying to match these two circles using the suitability rule. That is, the products needs to be suitable for the clients. If they're not suitable, if the client can prove that they're not suitable, whatever advice you gave was not suitable, then you can get sued in the court, right? So it's very important that you follow the suitability rule. Again, this is just an introduction. We are going to talk in greater details about all these concepts. Okay, so let's cover the PowerPoint. So as a mutual fund representative, your objective is to provide good customer service. What is good customer service? You need to know your clients really well. So the book talks about a process. So when a client walks in, you have him or her fill a detailed questionnaire, right? You get details about their net worth, about their income, how much money they have for investing, how much time you have for their investments, etc. So you need to know your client really well. Then you need to know your products, because the products, like there are like easier mutual funds to understand. For example, so stock market fund is quite easy to understand, but then there are complex funds too. Like for example, it could be an international equity fund, right, or an international junk bond fund. So you need to know your products really well in order to advise. And you need to ensure that client only buys suitable mutual fund. So that, again, two circles: know your client, know your products, and the intersection is the suitability rule. The products need to be suitable for a mutual fund client, and you need to keep on engaging with the client, because client circumstances can change. So you need to ensure that the product remains suitable for your client. So you have 3 legal responsibilities. Your legal responsibility is only sell suitable product. Okay, if the product is not suitable, you do not sell. An example of that would be if a client has low risk appetite, doesn't like risk at all, and his or her investment horizon is very short. Let's say he wants to invest money only for 6 months because he wants to, let's say, buy a house. He's accumulating down payment. In that case, stock market funds would not be suitable for him because he doesn't like risk. Plus, the duration for investment is very short. The market can go up and down very rapidly in 6 months, right? So in that case, most likely you would go with a low risk mutual fund called as money market fund. As the course proceeds, we'll talk about all these funds. Then you also have an ethical responsibility. You should always put the client's interest first. Instead of your interest, you have to put the client interest first. For example, equity funds generally have a higher commission. Money market funds have lower commission. But if a money market fund is more suitable for a client circumstance, you need to provide him, or you need to convince him regarding the second, right, even though your commissions will be lower rather than the first, in which case the commissions could be higher. Also, you have a professional responsibility to provide best service. That means you need to be up to date with what is happening in the industry, right? How new products are coming up, what are the fees, right? What is happening in the overall economy. You need to be up to date. You need to do professional studies. You need to do continuous studies to improve yourself in order to provide a good service to your clients. So what is the legal responsibility? Ensure any investment you recommend is suitable for that particular client. An investment is suitable if it fits the client's goal. It should fit their goals. It should fit their financial condition, right? It should fit their personal circumstances. It should fit their investment knowledge, and it should fit their risk tolerance. Now goals are easy. They should match, the investment products need to match their goals. If the goals are long term in nature and the client has other things favorable for him, right, then you can go for long term investments like stock market. If the goals are short term in nature, then your pool of products is really small. Then you need to go for money market kind of funds. Financial condition is also important. So if the financial condition is such that the client does not have much disposable income, he has a lot of dependence on him, then you need to go with a low risk product. Personal circumstances like how stable is the job, right, what kind of like responsibilities the client has, the investment knowledge. If the client is not knowledgeable at all, you need to educate him. It is your responsibility to educate your clients and provide a product that is suitable to their investment knowledge. Then risk tolerance also is an important consideration. Risk tolerance means how much risk are they comfortable with. All Provincial Security Act make this responsibility very clear, and if you are on the wrong side of the law, then usually you will lose your job. Second, your firm needs to make the client whole. So whatever the client has a lawsuit against, right, if the government finds that, if the provincial authorities finds that there is a breach of suitability law, then you need to pay for the circumstances. You must place your client's needs before your own and before the needs of your firm. Like sometimes the firm can pressure you to do sales of a particular product, right? So you might have let's say a target of selling equity mutual funds, but all your clients are not suitable for that product. In that case, you have to follow the client rather than following your firm's target. Okay, this is particularly important when you're seeking to meet sales target or in expectation of receiving bonus or other compensation in your job. Otherwise, you get to meet this man, that is the MFDA head, vice president, the Prairie region, right? The person keeps on changing, but the idea is if you breach the law, breach the ethics, then you need to pay for it by like meeting an ombudsman. But he's a very nice man, but you never want to be in a meeting in your office with him or soon to be your ex-bosses. There is professional responsibility, so you must provide the best client service possible by keeping up to date about client, about product, and about the overall economic situation. You can accomplish this by knowing your client, knowing your product, and know that you have an obligation to refuse to sell an unsuitable product to your client. Now, a situation may arise when the client itself wants that product. So let's say the situation that we were discussing, 6 months of investment time, the client wants to accumulate money for down payment, so very less time, but the client insists of making investment, his entire investment in stock market. Now you clearly know that it is not suitable for him, but the client is insisting, then you need to let the client go. You should not breach the suitability even if the client is suggesting that. Compliance. The mutual fund industry, as with other financial sectors, is mainly based on confidence and trust. The industry sets out rules and regulations for ethical conduct that cover the compliance aspect of mutual fund sales. Compliance means following rules that are set out by the MFDA, Mutual Fund Dealers Association, or any other rule that applies. It could be a provincial rule, it could be a federal rule, right? You need to follow those rules. If you're not in compliance with those rules and regulations, you may be held financially responsible and can be subject to suspension, fines, dismissal from your firm, and more important, banning from the industry. There is a requirement of a mutual fund license in order to sell mutual funds or advise on mutual funds. Then if you're breaching something, the authority can cancel your license, so you're no longer allowed to advise on mutual funds throughout the industry. Now this is the new thing that has come up. So over a period, right, client focused reforms are coming up. So most of the reforms, right, that the government is making is focused towards clients. So in October of 2019, the Canadian Securities Administrator CRA released its final amendments to National Instrument 31103 known as client focused reforms, making 3 important changes to the representative conduct requirement. Who are representatives? You, who owns the license to advise on mutual funds. The intent is to better align the interest of advisors, dealers and clients. They improve outcome for the clients and clarify for clients the nature and term of their relationship with their representatives. These changes have come about because the security industry has changed from transactional trading focused environment to an environment where advice and guidance highlights the role and expectation of mutual funds. So knowing your client is extremely important. You must use due diligence. Due diligence means ask questions. Wherever you're not clear, you need to ask a lot of questions to learn the essential facts relevant to every client and every order. This is very important. Every new client that comes in, you need to do KYC. Also, if the client is older, but he's putting a new order, right? It's a newer investment, then every order needs to follow up with KYC. The information concerns financial goals and objectives, financial circumstances, personal circumstances, investment knowledge, ability to tolerate risk and time horizon. All of this we are going to cover in more details as the course proceeds, but these are the things that you need to question the client about. What are the financial goals and objectives? Why are they investing? What is their financial circumstances? What is their personal circumstances? Investment knowledge, how much knowledge do they have? Ability to tolerate risk, right? Are they comfortable with risk? What is the time horizon? All of these are required to make a suitable investment recommendations to your client. Okay, we are going to talk a lot about suitability clause throughout the course. Now it's very important. What happens if the client denies to give you this information? Then you cannot invest for that client. If the client refuses to do KYC, right, with you, then you are legally, right, required to let the client go. Then you need to know your products. So knowing your product means features of the security, risk involved with the investment, what are the buying and selling charges, what are the annual fees and charges associated with the fund, the type of income or gain that the fund generates, and fun fact documents on the website provide all this information. But you need to know your product really well, the product on which you're advising. Suitability, we are going to talk a lot about this throughout the course. Just will briefly discuss it. It means ensuring all recommendations are based on clients' unique personal and financial circumstances. So the products need to match the goals, their investment needs and objectives, the time horizon, the investment knowledge, risk tolerance, and within the recommended asset allocation model. So when you work for a bigger firm, when you when you have a new client, you ask a bunch of questions and it goes generally into a computerized system that provides you the recommended asset allocation for that client. It's a safe idea to follow that recommended asset allocation. Okay, so you need to follow that. It applies to both sophisticated, that is solicited, that is you are providing advice to the client, that is solicited order, and an unsolicited order. The client is requesting for something to be bought, right? Both these orders you need to check suitability. If an unsolicited order, that is the client generated order, is unsuitable, the branch compliance officer must determine if it is reasonable, General practices, you let that order go. You do not proceed with that order. In case you need to proceed, then you need to connect with a branch compliance officer. You need to get the permission and then you can proceed. So what is a mutual fund sales representative? They are the people who hold the license to advise on mutual funds. They help the client obtain suitable mutual fund based on the information that the client has provided. You obtain information, judge the fit, explain what doesn't fit, suggest suitable alternatives. Okay, this is very important. You're only allowed to discuss mutual fund product. You cannot advise on buying individual stocks or buying any other product unless you have a license to sell those investments. If the client refuses to provide KYC, that is, there is an incomplete know your client, then you refuse the order. Complex case or when budgeting is required, you have to refer to them to the financial planner. Okay, that completes chapter number 1. See you again in chapter number 2.